I'm going to mute it and.
Sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
Great.
Allison, are you in?
Yes.
I'm going to mute it.
second budget hearing. It's Thursday, April the 25th, 2024. The first item on the agenda for this evening is our Health and Human Services Department. Mike Charlotte, you're up.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks for having me, everybody. I'm happy to be here to present the Health and Human Services 2025 fiscal budget. Again, my name is Mike Charlie. I think everybody knows me here as the Director of the Health and Human Services Department. But joining me tonight is actually the latest addition to the Health and Human Services team. Her name is Sherry Lindo, and she's the new Public Health Program Coordinator Analyst. And she's more here for moral support tonight, since she's only been here for about 2 weeks and 2 days now. But she'll be an integral part of working with me on the village budget moving forward and managing the different grants that we have. So I thought it was important she'd be here tonight to meet everybody. So tonight I'd like to share the incredible work that the Health and Human Services team has been doing over the last year and our plans for the future. I have a lot of exciting items to share with you tonight. For fiscal year 25, our budget is 2.2. It stands at $2.2 million with an anticipated revenue of $831,000 in fees and grant revenue, which impressively covers about 40% of our budget's expenses. Our department has several unique divisions. As you can see in the budget, we have administration, we have environmental health, we have human services, and we have community health services along with our grant programs. We provide a lot of services that make the village a safer and healthier place to live. So tonight I will be highlighting some of the key aspects of our budget proposal, but also sharing with everybody some of the highlights of what we accomplished over the last year. So for now, let me reflect on some of the remarkable achievements of our team over the past year, and to say the least, we've been quite busy on Health and Human Services. So let me start with our I plan. So because we're a state certified health department, every 5 years, in order to retain our certification, we have to conduct a comprehensive community health needs assessment. And we finished our community health needs assessment over the last fiscal year. And we actually received approval for the plan we had submitted, the community health needs assessment plan, from the Illinois Department of Public Health in January of 2024. And that was, of course, preceded by the village board approving the plan, our board of health approving the plan. And through this plan, we identified 3 public health priorities to work on, and those being access to healthcare, access to behavioral health, and affordable housing. We've created what we call the Skokie Health Equity Network, which is a collaborative group of not only internal village stakeholders, but also external stakeholders throughout the village to help us move the different objectives and action steps forward with the I plan. And we'll be working on those over the next couple of years. Grant funding wise, we have 15 different grants we manage. It's always been a priority for the Health and Human Services Department to support what we do, is to find these different grants. And for the fiscal year 25 budget, we have $631,000 of expected revenues from grants. But I will say that on Tuesday, I will be applying for an additional $125,000 grant. So you can kick that up of $125,000, but I didn't really know about this grant just recently. But like I said, we're constantly looking for grants. Between grants and fees, we're about 40% of our total grant expenditures are paid for. These grants are essential to us because they help pay for many of our most important programs, like emergency preparedness, food protection, childhood lead investigations, disease investigations, vaccination initiatives, and they help support many of our professional staff salaries. So we're really proud of all the different grant work we do. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is our rat control program. And I think that this might be one of the more lengthy sections of my presentation, just for the simple fact that we are asking for an increase in the 2025 budget. So the village, we have a robust rat control program. We have prioritized rat control for many years. The village actually hired the first full-time environmental control officer to work exclusively on rats back in 2012. So since then, it's been a priority, not only for the Health and Human Services Department, but for the village manager's office and the board. The program's number one priority is to reduce rat activity in the village. When rat activity is observed, we respond promptly to that property. And when activity is found, baiting of the burrow starts immediately, and we'll bait those burrows in that property until we eliminate the rats. We've implemented an integrated pest management program where we seek to identify the root causes of rat activity. Many properties have obvious contributing factors that increase the likelihood that rats will want to harbor on the property. Contributing factors include things like unkept vegetation, not elevating wood piles, unkept gardens, grease accumulation on grills, available water sources, dog feces, improper composting, poorly maintained garbage, and ground feeding of birds. If we observe any of these contributing factors, we notify the property owner and expect their cooperation in eliminating the contributing factors. And at the same time, a big part of our program is education. Like we're not out there to penalize people. We're out there to show them like these are the things that you're doing, and these are the things you can correct to really assist us with combating rats. We have observed an increase in rats over the last 4 years. However, rats are not only a Skokie issue, rats are a regional issue. Surrounding communities including Niles, Lincolnwood, and Evanston, we've talked to them. They've all experienced an increase in rats over the last several years. Orkin has dubbed Chicago the rattiest city in America for the last 9 years. Our environmental health supervisor, Cameron Hendricks, has spoken to many of the surrounding communities to establish working relationships and share best practices. So we're learning from them and they're learning from us. Surrounding communities have actually shared that our program they feel is one of the best and actually better at times in their programs. And they often contact us for recommendations on how they can improve their programs. We've received several calls from surrounding municipalities about what we do recently. Recently, the Chicago area has experienced warmer winter temperatures. Pest control experts, and we attend regular conferences and trainings, have said that this is one of the primary reasons that you've seen the increase in rat populations. Just today, I took a look at the average January temperatures over the last 20 years at Chicago O'Hare Airport, and the last 2 years, the 2 winters, the 2 Januaries have been the first and third warmest Januaries recorded over the last 20 years. Controlling the rat population has been challenging and complex. It's a combination of warmer winters and the other contributing factors mentioned that have made rat control as challenging as ever for not only us, but really regionally. In response to this challenge, we have prioritized rat control. We have prioritized the program. We've increased community education, regularly utilizing our Skokie news and our new Skokie newsletter. We have also through that media have encouraged residents to prevent rats, but also to call us if they see rats. That's really important that people get a hold of us so we can help them out. The last 2 summers, we created rat heat density maps, then prioritized those areas with the greatest density. We sent staff has spent countless hours. We had 5 or 6 staff out there last summer surveying the areas with the highest density, handing out information, finding burrows. Those surveys combine public education and surveying for the burrows. And a natural byproduct of all this is of our preventive surveying efforts is public knowledge. And I think that because of that public knowledge, there's a greater likelihood now that people are actually calling us to go out and combat these rats. One of our underlying goals is to reduce the stigma. So people think, hey, I have rats, we have someone to call to help us out, instead of saying, I have rats, I don't want anyone to know. So we've made it more of a natural thing for people to call us. I also wanted to mention our Turtle Rat Control Committee that we have that includes the village manager's office, public works, community development, and health and human services. This committee has increased communication and coordination so that we're all on the same page. Neighborhood Services is helping us distribute flyers. Neighborhood Services now knows what to look for if they see rat burrows to call to notify us right away so we can get out and treat those properties. In 2023, we recognized that we did need a little more support internally to get out promptly to those properties, and we hired 2 new part-time environmental health officers. In addition, in 2023, we added a ton of new strategies. We've been piloting a CO2 device, and we've added several new rodenticides to our arsenal to combat rats. So we are taking steps to try to reduce the rat population. Moving on to the 2025 budget. The 2025 budget has recommended an increase of $337,000 to prioritize rat control. This increase includes an additional $274,000 to hire an Illinois licensed pest control company to ensure we have sustained weekly visits, which is really important. In addition, we have also included $60,000 to retain those 2 part-time employees that we hired last year to retain that service. I know that's a lot on rats, but I just wanted to, I think it was important for me tonight to just communicate like all the things we're doing. So it's not, we are doing a lot. But we can, go ahead.
I guess I'm concerned about like the misinformation that's out there about what's causing the rats, which we've all heard, like it has nothing to do with composting, you know, and people think it does. And I just wonder like how we can like, you know, talk about, educate people so that these myths aren't perpetuated.
Jumping on that, I was gonna say something similar, and that is, misinformation. People think, of course, because we went to one garbage pickup a week, that's creating it. And then if people look at the budget, I don't want them to say, well, you did it to save money, we didn't do it that way. For that reason, we did it for environmental purposes, because we didn't need trucks running through. But I think also we can understand what weighed it out. Is there a cost differential between bringing in the additional staff versus having them twice a week? I think we need a more of an analysis between that for people who are going to ask those questions. You know, is it, gave us a good synopsis telling us that the surrounding areas have the same issue. That's how people want to hear. I want to hear about our village, and to say it from my context, it's better to know. But I think that we do have to look at it from the perspective of, is it because we reduce the amount of garbage pickups? And what's the cost differential on it? So the more knowledge that we have, the better that we can speak to people.
We did look at, we've had 4 straight years of increases, so,
Right.
I mean, it was
Before
May of,
we even,
it was May of 2023,
No question.
you know, when we went the once with trash pickup, so we have been observing increases prior to then. And we firmly believe that the increases even since then are because of that. We feel like it's because of those other things, the contributing factors. I mean, it's not the only thing.
A lot of times, we are reading that it has to do with weather, because we haven't had enough cold. I'm not terribly sad about that, but that it gives the population of rats to increase versus killing them or whatever they do.
It provides them, a greater food source, and it provides them a better opportunity to multiply. So, yeah.
I think there was some hope that expanding composting services would help the problem by just getting organic waste out of garbage. Do you have any sense whatsoever if this is helping?
I think when anybody asks about any type of refuse collection, I think my message to people would be, as long as the refuse is maintained, regardless if there's once a week pickup or twice a week pickup or it's composting, as long as it's stored in sealed garbage cans and people take care of that. And if they have any questions, they can reach out to Public Works or the Health and Human Services Department of Work. We're more than willing to help those individuals manage that part of their property. That's the most important thing.
well, it is a problem when you're out in the community. They're blaming the wrong things for the rats. And so I just want to clear that up. You know, that's not reason.
Right, the food sources for rats are numerous. You know, there's a preference. A chocolate candy bar left on the ground versus feces, but there's a spectrum of food sources for rats. And so when the mild winters have occurred multiple seasons year after year, there's more litters. And so each litter has X number of rats. And so there's more rats that are occurring just because of the weather conditions. And then when food sources are eliminated, then the rats have nowhere to eat. They don't have the food source. But when the garbage is contained, then it's not accessible to the rats. And so there's no question that people jump to their own conclusions, but the data doesn't support that anything related to the frequency of garbage pickup has anything to do with the increase in rat population in our community.
Is there something, some kind of bag or something that is better for tying up garbage that we could recommend to people? Or because I remember Maxine telling us about that that's the main thing, like people aren't tying it up, or if they want to do their composting, they can put it in the freezer, which is what I do now, you know, and works great. I mean, all these little education tips, maybe there's things we could suggest, I don't know.
We can get people to read.
Yeah.
I suppose we could look and see if there's a bag that we would recommend. You know, I think personally, any bag that has the ability to tie is beneficial, but even when you tie your normal, say, under sink kitchen trash bag, there's still, as we all know, a little gap in the top. So if I really want to seal it, I tie it there, and then I loop it, the bag itself around and knot it to try and keep as much odor or any liquid product that might be in there from spilling inside the toter. I think is best practice, and as we've talked before, mostly in the sense of the food scrap, but it applies equally to garbage. I mean, there's certain items that you might be placing in the refuse side that you might want to think about double bagging. You made reference ED2, freezing things to keep them more solid, to knock down some of the odor. And similarly, think about bagging some of those things separately within the kitchen bag itself to help keep them more isolated. But to Mike's point, I mean, I think what we see, what we observe, and I think what our collectors see day in and day out is that the issues come from are really what we consider to be housekeeping issues and property standards issues. And so once the village, I don't know, I love this word, once the village varmint population sees that your toter is a hospitable place to go get a meal, they learn that and they will keep coming back. So I would point out too, I know there's been reference to the compost sites, James, in your question. I will say at the now 9 compost sites that we run, we don't have rat issues at those sites, and that should be a real all-you-can-eat buffet for the rats out there. So those sites are not drawing in rat activity in those areas. So in and of itself,
That's proof.
it's not a draw.
On the alternative, if in my recycling toter, the squirrels have made holes and I'm not a good rinser of containers that had food in it, and they go into my recycling toter, then it's accessible to rats and squirrels and so forth. And so again, it's so important for the way that we contain the items in our recycling toter, the garbage toters, the village approved composting bin for people's backyards, and then of course the composting toters that we have available at the 9 free drop-off sites. But containing what is in those containers is so important.
So I have a few other items to go over tonight. I did want to mention that, you know, we have an amazing group of social workers downstairs in our Human Services Department. We've provided assistance to over 1,000 individuals since the beginning of the fiscal year. And, you know, they offer a wide variety of services, including housing assistance, food assistance, mental, behavioral health support, employment services, et cetera, et cetera. I'm really proud of what they do and their commitment to helping the residents with their social service needs. And then we got a co-responder program. I couldn't leave here today without talking about our amazing co-responder program. You know, this was one of the first co-responders in the state of Illinois. It celebrated its 2-year history in November. And I want to thank Trustee Sucker for championing this several years ago. You know, she was very instrumental to us beginning this program, but this two-person co-responder team partnering with Health and Human Services, social workers, and the police department, they assist families and individuals in crisis and not only resolve those crisis issues, but also work with our different social service agencies like Turning Point to link them to valuable services. In addition, we've received a ton of requests from surrounding municipalities and organizations for them to come speak and describe our program so that they can then learn and possibly start their own program. So we're sort of leaders in the co-responder program or co-responder programs throughout the state. And then we have our community flu clinic. So we administered about 1,300 flu doses last year. And we not only administered doses at our community clinics, we hold several of them, but we also administered them to our employees and also to homebound residents. And I think that's something that is really important is those individuals who otherwise wouldn't get those vaccines. We physically go out and to their homes. In addition, last year was the first year we offered the high dose flu vaccine, that senior high dose, and it was almost 50% of our doses. So that's another part of our village budget where if you look at it, we are recommending an increase to the medical supplies budget in community health services, but that's to pay for that high dose. Then in turn, when we bill Medicaid, it's very likely that we're gonna make up most of Medicare.
Yeah.
Medicare, and make up most, if not all of the added expense. So it's sort of a wash in a way. But that program is really wonderful. And then last but not least, this might be the last year I can mention COVID, hopefully. But despite the evolving landscape of COVID-19, you know, we're still dedicated at combating it. You know, we continue to provide vaccines for people who are uninsured or underinsured. You know, they commercialized, privatized a lot of the vaccines within the last year. So we're not actively, we don't have to actively administer vaccines to the general public because the pharmacies and Walgreens, Jewels, and providers are actually doing that. So, and we still continue with communicable disease surveillance, continue to work with the schools, daycares, long-term care facilities. We're constantly on the phone with them, assisting them when they do have outbreaks. So in addition to all this, we have many other wonderful programs, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to go over all of those. So thank you for your time, attention. We truly remain committed to our mission of keeping Skokie's residents healthy and safe. I have some amazing staff, really amazing staff, including our three commissions too, that we're staff liaisons for. So I guess any other questions you guys might have regarding Health and Human Services?
For the hometown residents, are we actively reaching out to them every year, or are they reaching out to us when they need?
Okay, so we have a list on file, and we'll reach out to them and let them know that, you know, we're providing vaccines. You know, when there's primarily when flu vaccine comes out, that's primarily when we reach out to those residents, and or if there's a new COVID vaccine, like the new monovalent COVID vaccine came out last fall, so we actively reached out to those homebound residents and communicated that we had it, and then we scheduled appointments with them.
Are we recruiting social workers for our medical?
We have been, and that's been a struggle, but we have been.
It's been a struggle because.
I don't know if I have a reason for that, but we've been using our Skokie e-news and our new Skokie, and we put feelers out into the community, trying to attract. We have attracted a couple.
And are you asking for certain licenses or just in general mental health?
I think we're leaving it pretty open to mental health professionals, therapists, social workers. And I think that was a great, and I think that's something that is going to add a ton of value to our medical reserve corps, just in case anything ever does happen. We also have a really strong relationship with our collar counties, so that, like, for instance, when we had an issue at the library, we were able to put out a sort of like a MABUS, that it's something that we have in the health department where we requested to have some someone from another person's MRC come in and so if we had something here, we can recruit from other MRCs too, and we have that
Could
relationship.
we potentially ask, other agencies around, like, God forbid there was an emergency, could you designate 2 social workers or something?
Of course.
Could we recruit like that? Meaning they don't have to sign up, they don't have to do anything unless, God forbid.
I think that with the liability issues, I think we try to have them just join the MRC.
Could they join the MRC though, as like part of their,
Oh, the organization itself or the
or
actual?
or
Yeah,
the 2 people they designate?
Of course.
Yeah, because there is a liability issue,
Yeah.
I understand.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate, everything
Welcome.
that you do for us too.
Fire Department, Chief Oakland, Deputy Chief Ashner Jackman. Welcome.
Second drive out.
Good to be prepared.
Meeting everyone, Mayor, thank you, trustees, good to see you this evening, thank you for having us. So, lot to go over, I want to introduce my deputies, Deputy Steve Jagman, Deputy Nick Eschner, Deputy Chief Nick Eschner, and then Rolanda is here as our management analyst, who's been with us for about a year, doing a great job, and we're glad to have him on the team. So I'll start off by just kind of giving an overview of 2023 and beginning of 2024. I can't say enough about the work that our staff does from a management side, the leadership they demonstrate, their organizational skills and their way of establishing systems to make our operations more efficient. All 3 of these gentlemen do an outstanding job with that, along with our administrative staff. Really makes my life easier. So kind of give a little bit of a recap. In August of 2023, we were awarded our ISO Class 1 again. So since 1995, we've been able to retain an ISO Class 1 designation. One of 29 in these, one of 29 departments in the state of Illinois. So certainly a great achievement and something that doesn't just reflect well on the fire department, but really on the village's commitment to emergency services, their support of the fire department, water department, training, communications, dispatch center, all of those play a key role, along with the incredible work that our firefighters do. Really makes that ISO Class 1 possible. So thank you. Recently, we've been working on our community risk assessment, which has been a very significant, comprehensive analysis of what we identify as risk within the community, and it ranges from anything from weather-related risks, building profiles, all types of responses that we respond to or calls that we go on. So it's a very deep analysis, and I'll get a little bit into more about those results, and I would hope that you'll have an opportunity to review that community risk assessment. But that was also a big undertaking that we recently completed, and that's going to tie in with our the next phase, which is our strategic planning and delving deeper into our preparation for accreditation. Other administrative activities this past year included more FEMA grant work. So we successfully completed the purchase of the SCBA's that we were awarded last year in a grant. And so all those SCBA's are now in service. That was about a $372,000 grant that we had received. and allowed us to replace every single one of our self-contained breathing apparatuses for our personnel. We also were awarded a SAFER grant, which funded 3 firefighter positions for 3 years, 100% of their salary and benefits, which was funded a funding level or an award level of 1.2, almost $1.3 million to cover the cost for 3 years. So that we're not quite through the first year, so we'll have those 3 firefighters positions funded for 2+ more years. And then most recently, we've been working with some of our neighboring communities to apply for a fire prevention and public safety grant, basically towards the purchase of a fire safety trailer, and something that we would operate cooperatively with our neighboring communities if we're successful. So that one was just submitted, so we may not hear about that grant for a couple months. We've also been very busy in our Fire Prevention Bureau. We continue to collaborate with community development on updating our codes and planning on many of the upcoming projects that are planned in the village of Skokie, and some really good cooperative efforts. I have to compliment Deputy Chief Ashner, the Fire Prevention Bureau staff. They've really done an outstanding job of establishing processes to make our, I think, the permitting process more efficient, and communication much better with the developers that are trying to take on new projects in the community. I could go down, if you could look at the snapshot to kind of get some more details, but the Bureau has been very busy with code inspections, over 1,900 fire prevention code inspections this past year, over 580 plan reviews, which kind of is a good indicator that there's a lot of good stuff happening in the village of Skokie with new development. Over 2,500 hydrants that were inspected, and nearly 500 hydrants that were flow tested. A lot of that is very important for maintaining our ISO ratings to make sure that we have a good water system. We also continue the partnership with the state of Illinois Fire Marshal's Office and the Fire Safety Alliance, installing free smoke detectors for people that need them in their homes. And with that program is now installed more than 635 smoke alarms in the community. And then I think a really important thing that our Fire Prevention Bureau does that I want to acknowledge is the work they do to follow up on issues that occur pretty much daily, where our companies encounter a problem with an alarm system or a sprinkler system or a fire pump or maybe just a storage issue. And the Bureau staff does an outstanding job of following up on those issues to make sure that we keep the community as safe as possible. It's not just about handling emergencies, it's really about preventing emergencies as well, and they do an outstanding job with that. And then probably I think one of the other things I really want to highlight is the public education program. During COVID, obviously that public education program really suffered, and the leadership of FPD specialist Tim Taylor this past year, along with the rest of the Bureau staff and members of our department that are on a pub ed committee, have done an outstanding job. We started up a Fire Explorer program and already have 13 very involved youth in that program. We had a very successful Citizens Fire Academy this past year. We've expanded many of our school and community events and the interaction with the public in those opportunities. And then also participated in several career days. So it's really exciting to see that growth, and some of those activities will serve as good recruiting tools, I think, for future firefighters. We have with the 13 explorers, and then several of the youth that participated in the Citizens Fire Academy. There's definitely interest in making a career of being a paramedic or a firefighter. I'll get on to fire department operations next. So our paramedics and firefighters do an outstanding job, and they're busy. Last year, they responded to 11,145 calls, which was a record number of incidents, again, this past year. Call volume continues to increase, and there's not necessarily one cause for that increase. Because if you look at the numbers and the data, the call volume increases across the board regardless of the type of category, whether it be EMS calls or public service calls, fire alarms, et cetera. So there's just a general increase in all those types of calls. But the last 5 years has seen a 12.5% increase in call volume, and in the past 10 years, almost a 28% increase in call volume. So obviously that is something that we are aware of and doing what we can to change responses and minimize the impacts so that we always have apparatus and personnel available to handle the next emergency. One of the good things that, and I think Charlie touched on it previously, was the co-responder program. That's been a great partnership with Health and Human Services, Police Department, and the Fire Department. And it really is, I think, going to help, or it already has helped in reducing some repeat calls. And it's also they've been a tremendous asset for us when we're involved with a resident or a patient that needs assistance. The code responders have been awesome to work with and have helped us greatly. And then we too sometimes are available if they have a patient that or someone that needs some medical attention. We have an excellent partnership. So getting back to the number of calls, of the 11,145 incidents this past year, 171 of those were for some type of fire. That could be from anything from a trash can fire, mulch fire, to a structure fire. 60 of those were fires that were in a structure. Those could also range in various sizes, something very small to something that our firefighters, committed several fire companies or many personnel to extinguishing. 7,372 of those calls were for emergency medical services, and we treated 8,269 patients in the past year. So our paramedics are busy. They do excellent work. The balance of the calls, 3,773 incidents, are for various service calls, fire alarms, hazardous conditions or hazardous material incidents, or severe weather. So there's really a wide variety of things, of reasons why we respond. I'd like to continue to focus a little bit on our workforce now.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, you may.
Do you know how many of the calls are drug overdose related?
I do not have that number. Yeah, so depending on how it's reported, we should be able to get that information for you. Honestly, any drug overdose is terrible. In some respects, we're fortunate we don't see the number of overdoses that are seen sometimes in outlying areas, outlying counties even. But it is still something that we are, concerned with. We do, and our police also carry Narcan, and you obviously I think many of you are aware of the availability of Narcan to help intercede. But we do respond to, too many.
Does Narcan work with fentanyl?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I was asking if that works with fentanyl.
A lot of times with the fentanyl, it's typically mixed with something else, so a lot of times it'll have an impact, maybe not to completely pull them out of the situation they're in, but it will have some impact.
We won't necessarily know
What it is.
what it is. And so oftentimes we will treat with Narcan, and like I said, you usually will have an impact. It may not resolve the issue, but like I said, we don't always know what they're taking, so it's certainly one method of treatment.
Because we're seeing an increase of people dying from fentanyl with it being laced in other drugs, and so I wondered what you were seeing.
Yeah, that is a big problem. Especially lately with laced with other things.
Thank you.
I have a question also.
Yes.
Thank you. Is there, in the increase of, calls, and, is there an age range? Is there, do you see it with more elderly? Is there, or is it really just across the board still?
Still really just across.
Increases our population increases?
It really is across the board. And certainly as population increases, it's natural that they need more medical assistance. Some people that are perhaps, have less, access to healthcare, are more likely to call for assistance because it's not easy for them necessarily to get into a doctor's appointment. So that might explain some of the call increases. There's not one single thing and not one single group that's causing these increases from what we've seen. We've done quite a few different analysis, but we're continuing to analyze that information. So we have a very outstanding workforce, relatively young. We have a lot of young firefighters and some younger officers, and we obviously give a lot of focus on our training. A lot of training is mandated, like certain training has to be accomplished each year, and a lot of training is to identify that things that we see that our personnel need to really succeed in their job. And so this past year, we completed over 37,000 hours of training, which is about 306 hours per firefighter, and that could include EMS and fire training. And then we also had members of the organization that were successful in achieving 95 completed OSFM or state fire marshal courses. So those are courses that help them be better at their job, and they were able to complete those courses and get certified. And then also, and part of that was courses that we provided in-house. And so because we have such a young workforce, we have a lot of individuals that need quite a few different classes. And so by providing certain classes like vehicle machinery operations or rope rescue or basic firefighting, fire service vehicle operations, by providing those courses in-house, we're able to get more of our people into classes for one. It's a cost savings to the village. It makes it more efficient in how we get our people up to speed in different areas. And then it really kind of actually raises the bar for the instructors as well, because there's no one better who really learns something better than the person that has to teach it. And so it's really been great. We've done at least 4 in-house programs already, and we're looking to expand that. Move on to a little update on our capital improvement program.
Can I ask about this now?
Yes.
Sorry. So it's good to know that you have a young staff, and that we have, what's wanting to become firefighters. However, I'm curious, are we short-staffed? How many are for disability? What are we looking at? Retirement? What's the lot of picture?
So we had a big wave of hiring. We're kind of at the later end of a big wave of hiring, but that doesn't mean we won't have others retire. And so typical year might see 5 people retire. We had a couple of years where we had 10 people just because of the age of the members and the seniority that they had. We were a community that expanded significantly after World War II. 30 years later, people like me got hired, and then 30 years later, people like me leave, and you have to replace us. So right now, all of our funded positions are filled. We have 1 firefighter retiring in May, and we already have the person lined up for that position. So we're excited about that. So as long as the passage is medical. And so.
And do you have anybody out on disability?
We actually are currently not. We had 2 firefighters recently return from disability. So we are, at this moment, as fully staffed, really for the first time in a long time. So.
And then when you're doing your trainings, obviously someone's in training, they're not available for calls, so you rotate that around in the schedule.
Right. So we do most of our training while on shift, while on duty. And so we'll, like, for instance, this week, they've been doing live fire training. And so basically half of the workforce goes there in the morning and completes the training sessions. Some of those rigs at the training tower have to stay available, but they all get an opportunity to rotate through the skills. And then they switch, and the other half of the department comes in the afternoon and completes the same training. So we have different ways of making sure we get that training accomplished.
Thank you.
And Skokie, I'm sorry, do you have the manpower numbers?
Yeah, so we have 112 sworn members.
Person power,
I'm sorry?
person power.
Whatever. So that's an increase in last year.
Yeah, the three positions that were filled through the SAFER grant.
Right, and one more question on the grant where we have 3 firefighters. When is this grant up?
It's 3-year grant, which started it starts when they got hired, so they started this previous October. So this coming October would be their first year, and then we have 2 more years.
Oh, okay, so we don't have to worry about that for a while.
Yet,
Thank you.
thank you.
You're welcome. So a lot is happening with our fleet. We have fortunate support of the Public Works and Automotive Division, but it is ever challenging, and I'm sure you see with just buying a car, but for us, it's even more difficult. Ambulances take anywhere from 18 months to 2 years to purchase, and fire apparatus are anywhere from 2 to 4 years, really more like 4 years right now. In fact, pretty much all of them are on a 4-year waiting list. We were fortunate to be a little bit ahead of that with some of the planning and are working with Public Works. And fortunately, they had the approval of the board on several purchases. So we have 1 truck that was ordered quite a while ago and has actually just finished its pre-built engineering, and they'll start manufacturing it this summer, and we anticipate getting that this fall. Then we have 3 other apparatus that you purchased this past year that were in the CIP, and by ordering them at the time, there was a tremendous cost savings. At the time, the cost savings was estimated at about $600,000, but the reality is that cost savings will probably be closer to $1 million because the costs keep going up. So if we waited till next year to order those apparatus, even though we may not get some of those apparatus till 2025 or 2026, you can imagine how much more that price would have escalated. So, so we do have a squad engine our squad and 2 engines that are also on order and waiting for our turn line. And then we are also midway through our ambulance refurbishment program that you approved last year. We have ambulance 17 was refurbished and re-chassis. In other words, they refurbished the patient compartment box and moved it to a new chassis. And we have that ambulance in service at station 17. And it turned out excellent. If you look at it, it looks like a completely new ambulance, and it's working very well. The second one of those is being worked on right now, and we anticipate receiving that sometime in the next couple of weeks. And then the third one, which will be ambulance 18, they'll start on it as soon as they get a chassis, and we think that should be in the next couple of months. So that program also was not only did it make the availability that much faster, because we would have had to wait, closer to another year for a chassis and an ambulance to be manufactured. This sped up the process and then also provided a savings of about $700,000. So a really good program. It's not something we can do every time, but certainly we hope that maybe we can buy a new ambulance and then in its cycle re-chassis it and then replace it the next time around. So far, so that plan. So I'll just quickly touch base on some of the goals for 2025. The first 3 goals in our budget are focused on the services that we provide in the community, and so there's always an important emphasis on that. So we want to continue to build on the community risk reduction programs that we're doing, code enforcement, and then providing efficient and appropriate emergency medical services and firefighting services. And so that kind of ties in with that community risk assessment that we did, and some of what we identified through that assessment process and through our monthly reports and other analysis is the obvious increased volume of calls. And that increased volume of calls is, as I said, impacts a number of things, and it really can't be identified as one cause for it. Something that ties in with that increased call volume is increase in our response times. Because you can imagine when an ambulance or a fire rig have to leave station 17th district and get up to the 18th district because the 18th limits all out, that's gonna make our response times longer. So that's something that we're aware of and certainly was clearly identified in the community risk assessment, and something that, we need to, kind of identify more deeply and provide use of better analysis. And so we're in the process of that now, developing some further analysis and deployment analysis studies. And then, we'll have to consider what options that would be best serve the community to deal with that increasing call volume. Certain factors, that could be considered might be movement of a station or further north where we're seeing a lot of growth along Old Orchard Road. Might be included an additional ambulance. Obviously, identifying, where those, where we're deficient in our response time, where we want to improve our response times, will factor into those recommendations that we make.
How often are we doing a community risk assessment?
So actually, community risk assessment is part of the accreditation process. And recently, NFPA has developed a community risk assessment process, so more standardized approach to it. And so while we've done a small scale community risk assessments previously, this is really our first in-depth comprehensive analysis of this nature. And so, so it's our first time, and that we're very, unfortunate to have the staff help with that. And I think you'll be impressed with the information that comes forward in it. And I think it's serving us as a good tool to look at how we can better serve.
Are we, out of that risk assessment, are we also getting like an aggregate of surrounding communities and sort of how they're faring as well, just to have some perspective?
Yes, so every year we do get, we participate in surveys with other communities. And so we get a pretty good in-depth analysis of their type of responses, their call volume, and get that feedback. And so we do have, we are able to provide some data to support, to show where we are at in relation to other communities. And other communities are seeing the same thing. In fact, every community, one of the analysis we did recently, every community's call volume was going up like this, dipped during COVID, and then went right back up, and pretty significant. So I don't want to go into too much more depth on any of these things. We'll continue to obviously support our training programs. One of the things that we currently are working on is this was in last year's CIP, and it was for new alerting systems in all 3 fire stations, and then new alerting equipment in their dispatch center, and that's what basically communicates an alarm to the fire department and lets us know what we have, where we need to go. So that system is being installed now in the 3 stations. And then what we have presented in this coming year's CIP in FY25 is new emergency warning sirens throughout the village of Skokie. And so this would actually significantly improve our ability to alert the community. It would have a much more sophisticated system that's able to actually communicate messaging. And then we would also include more towers that would get better coverage of the community. So we're excited about that, and if you so approve it in the budget. And then I think lastly, I'll just touch base on I think the collaboration with the other departments is something that we continue to strive for, and it's been outstanding. We currently are working on emergency management plans for emergency operations with like severe weather or a mass shooting or any sort of large scale incident. Hazard mitigation planning, obviously involved with environmental sustainability planning. And so the collaboration, I think, is tremendous. And it's something that, you know, we're excited to be participating with. And I think we'll all continue to see that, you know, make the community better, make our services better. And then I open any questions.
Thank you so much.
Public Works Department. Max, Liz. Russ, Samantha. Brad.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us this evening. Hope everybody knows I'm Max Slankert, Public Works Director. Joining me this evening, Liz Zimmerman, Assistant to the Public Works Director, Samantha Maximilian, the Senior Engineer, Russ Rietveld, Director of Engineering, and a new face for some of you tonight. This is Brad Magi. Brad is the Operations Manager for the Public Works Department. That was a position that this board approved a year ago. And so he is here personified, so welcome him. You'll be hearing from him in a little bit, but he is one of our rising stars, as I would call it, in our department. So happy he could join us here this evening. Let's hope he's as happy as we are. General overview of the budget. Our budget, general fund aspect of the budget's increasing 1.1% or $148,000. You can see the details. We can talk about the details. Obviously, as usual, a lot of those increases are in contractual tree trimming and tree-related things, and then in automotive and in fleet maintenance area. And so, you know, Jeff in his presentation talked about, you know, the importance of fire apparatus and maintaining the fire apparatus and where we are and have been on getting some of his equipment replaced and the long lead times on that. We've also faced very similar long lead time issues with equipment replacement in the police budget, as well as in our own budget. But obviously, public safety equipment, excuse me, is a priority. And so all of these things relate back to the supply chain disruptions. They go back to COVID, combined with some labor issues in the case of some of the automotive and truck manufacturers. And so this whole host of effects that continue to impact the automotive business have impacted this budget from the vehicle acquisition standpoint, as well as maintaining what is now an older fleet and a parts supply chain that is still impacted in an inflationary environment that is resulting in everything costing more and us at the same time needing more parts because we're running an older fleet. So not what I intended to say, but it's a good time to say it. So there you go. So this evening we want to talk about a few things. One of those things I'm going to talk about a little bit with you, and that was included in your packet this evening, and that is stormwater. As you know, we formed a new stormwater task force in the aftermath of the rainfall events in May of 2020. We received about 7.5 inches of rain over the course of 2 separate storm events that occurred within 3 days of each other. It was kind of a unique set of circumstances. Then that Chicago waterway area system, which is what we discharge to, the Northside Treatment Plant, the North Shore Channel, ultimately the lake. In that circumstance, the deep tunnel, that whole network happened to be very full for those rain events. We've got 2 of them in close succession and a full system of wet ground. Skokie experienced some significant water backup issues. At that time, the village manager put together this task force and appointed the members. And we as a staff were asked to get together with the task force and with consulting engineering firms and take a look at our stormwater runoff control system. For those of you that aren't familiar with the system and haven't, I'll call it old timers in the group that haven't gone back and looked at, there's no reason I'm looking at you, Mayor, that haven't looked at the old video on the website in quite some time. The village in the early 80s was faced with a plethora of basement backup issues, and that had been a long-standing issue in this community. And so a stormwater task force was put together in the early 80s to study that issue and to come up with proposed solutions. The common solutions that were considered were installation of a separated storm sewer system, or the installation of some form of overflow storm sewers. Here's the problem in Skokie. As with many inner-ring suburbs, not only in Chicago, but Cleveland, Detroit, pick your old metropolitan area in the United States, it is not uncommon at all to find a combined sewer system, such as we have in Skokie, where your household sanitary sewage flow goes into the same pipe network as the street drainage storm sewer flows. And so a preferred solution is to separate those two systems. And in a more modern community or a community with a later time period of development, that's what you would see. When the Storm Task Force in the 80s looked at that question, the cost of installing a separated system in Skokie or retrofitting the community, if you will, would have been $160 million, which doesn't sound like too much these days, but to put that into perspective, if you put that in 2024 dollars, that's $600 million. The scary thing is I had this number from 4 years ago and that figure was 400 million. Now, 2024, that's 600 million. So nonetheless, it was such a large number that the village of Skokie could not possibly have done so. I think the expression used then was it would have literally bankrupted the village. It had no capacity to entertain such a large program. But what the task force did come up with was the system that we ultimately did install, along with a series of ordinances to address some of the drainage issues that we see or saw in the community at that time. Not terribly unusual, and those are downspout disconnections, requiring overhead sewer for new residential installation and the like. But we arrived at the engineered solution to do the system we have in place today, which is creating berms in the roadways that pond water connected with a series of inlets that have restrictors in them to keep the water ponded on the roads instead of allowing it to quickly go into the combined sewer system. We have 623 of those berms in Skokie, and those are all very carefully engineered to hold the water, to only allow, based on the size of the restrictor, to only allow that water to go up so high on the street and overtop the curb, but not go beyond to the sidewalk, Russ? Is that correct?
Yeah, it should stop a little bit shy of the sidewalk.
Right, so only allowed to go to a certain point. And also involved the creation of underground storage tanks and storage facilities in the village, some of which you see the Gabion Pond on Madison, which those of you who go to the Arbor Day tree planting tomorrow morning at 8:45. Look across the street, the Madison Pond there is the pond that, one of the ponds that helps protect the downtown area. The other is the Gabion Pond, which is at the southwest corner of Oakton and Skokie Boulevard. And some of you may have never seen that, but it's there. So 93 of those runoff control facilities exist in Skokie. So the total capacity that was created by that project, which began in the mid 80s, ended in the late 90s at a total cost of about $80 million, created a capacity of about 30.6 million gallons of stormwater control. And it worked, and it's worked well. Parts of the system require some maintenance. The restrictors, as many of you probably know, when the water ponds in your street for too long or the water stays there for 24 hours, the restrictors will most likely plug with debris and it requires maintenance. So the good news is that system worked well for Skokie. It was a unique design. It was then copied by other communities, Wilmette amongst others, copied the berm design and storing water in the streets. It was a clever solution. Here's the problem. That system was designed to provide protection for a 10-year storm event. Now, whether you're a believer in climate change or you're a believer in we're just in some weird weather cycle or whatever it is your worldview says to you, here's what we do know, is that per the Fifth National Climate Assessment, heavy storms have become 45% more frequent in the Midwest in the period 1958 to 2021. We do know too, that what was once a 10-year storm in 1980, which is what this system we have currently was designed to respond to. It's not a 10-year storm today. So we talk about climate change, when we talk about our sustainability plan, and some people look at that and say there's so many things in there, and a lot of it is seemingly an abstraction about responding to climate change and creating climate resiliency. This isn't an abstraction. This is the reality. So the reality is that when this system was designed, a 10-year storm was 2.21 inches of rainfall in 2 hours. Today, a 10-year storm is 2.99 inches of rainfall in 2 hours. So long story short, our system that once upon a time protected this community from a 10-year storm event doesn't anymore. And so that's what this task force was asked to do, was study this. We call it Stormwater Task Force 2.0. Go study our system again, understand what it does, understand what its limitations are, and then, obviously, importantly, work with our consulting engineer, which is Christopher Bird. What are potential solutions? So the new task force has been meeting. The first item, though, and it's taken a while, right? The task force started in 2020. Here we sit in early 2024. But in order for the task force to do its work, the first thing we needed to do was create a hydraulic model of the village's stormwater system. Once that's created, then the model has to be calibrated. And what that means is we need to put rain gauges in our system. We need to put flow sensors in the sewer side of the system. And then we need rain events to actually have these events recorded so that we can calibrate the computer model to say, does what the model forecasts correspond to the reality of what we see in the sensors when it does rain? Long story short, it takes some time to get through that. But once we do, we're left with an awful lot of data that has to be sorted through. With that change in standard, we discovered that the current level of service of our system is really equivalent to what is now a 2-year storm event rather than a 10-year storm event. So the fundamental question then becomes for the task force, what is the ability to return us to a 10-year level of protection? Task force has been working with this complex data and evaluating potential solutions. I will tell you that these solution sets that they're looking at includes what are potential public improvement projects that help address the areas of the community that have the more acute issues or that have deficiencies. They're also considering, should the solution set instead be private property protection programs? I will say that the most common of those that you see in this area or in any other suburban area that's similar to this is installation of overhead sewers. Or will the solution be some hybrid of those approaches or other? For purposes of scale, for the board's knowledge, as we look at potential for some public improvement projects, range of costs for a project may range from $4 million to as much as $17 million. If we're looking at what's the typical installation cost for an overhead sewer for a home to protect an individual property, probably looking at something along the lines of $15,000 per property. So the task force is going to continue to be working with this for the next few months. There are some obvious decisions and recommendations that need to be made. And this will be coming to the board, so you will hear from the task force again in short order, but it will be with some significant dollar implications attached to it.
When is this due? When we can hear from the task force?
Probably, I would imagine it will be the next few months. The task force met a few weeks ago. We're trying to schedule a next meeting for them, which will be roughly
I think we're targeting May 15th.
May 15th. I don't think they'll be done at the May 15th meeting. I'm trying to read my village manager's eyes. I don't think so. So there'll probably be at least another go around after that one.
We are desiring to present to the village board, but the task force needs to finish their deliberations. And I'm not sure if that's one meeting, 2 meetings, or more than that. And so it really is depending on how quickly the task force feels like they understand the data and they're ready to make their recommendations. It's really dependent upon, the reason we don't have a precise answer is, it'd be ideal to kind of have this conversation with the board this summer, as long as the task force is ready to, present their recommendations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions on that? Okay, next item, once a week refuse collection. We talked about it a little bit in passing earlier with respect to Mike Charlie's presentation. Obviously, we made that transition as of May 1 a year ago. Operationally, we feel like the change went well. We know there are people in the community that are huge proponents of it and will continue not to be. But operationally speaking, we feel like it went about as well as we thought it could. We're seeing some cost savings from that change, which Liz can detail a little bit more here in a moment. From a budgetary standpoint, we have reduced one position from the refuse division, and we are regularly achieving fuel savings on a monthly basis. But just to remind the board that when we talked about the potentiality for cost savings from this program, this was not going to be instantaneous cost savings in all manners. And by that, I mean, we would be able to achieve fuel savings. We hope that we would lead to some form of a potential change in behaviors. My point is the largest savings that we'd be able to realize in this regard would be our ability to reallocate resources, and those are human resources and truck resources, to either other uses, or our ability to winnow down our vehicle fleet over time. But this was always about doing such things over time as changes occurred organically and not by one fell swoop. So Liz has put out in front of you a brief graphic that depicts some of the refuse tonnage trends and some of the food scrap and the composting. I'm going to turn this over to her in a second. What I want to say to you, though, is that I hope I am always careful in saying to you when we look at refuse tonnage. The mayor knows I can talk about refuse tonnage forever, but I'll say to you, when you look at refuse tonnage, and particularly in a short-term basis, it's very difficult to assign cause and effect, even though she'll probably have some comment from that. Very difficult to assign cause and effect on a short-term basis. And as our old village manager used to say, if you want to know how the economy is going, ask the garbage work. So with that, I'll turn the floor to Liz.
Yeah, you pretty much summed it up. I would say one of my most humbling tasks for the year is to try to predict budget-wise how much trash people are gonna throw away for the year. It's always surprising. On the graph, I just wanted to show, I mean, COVID was such an anomaly. I wanted to show at least 2019. That 2019 number, was similar for 18, 17, and so forth. We're seeing historic lows coming in on tonnage. Skokie has a decrease of right now, and April numbers I estimated, but we're looking at about a 5.6% decrease, which is quite significant for a municipality. What I did is I did pull swank data. I wanted to get some context. really, almost all of the communities are down on tonnage. However, Skokie is down more than others. So like the mean and the median are more at like the 1% range of communities being down, and Skokie's at 5.6%. So I think when I ranked it, we were, I believe, like the third or the fourth community of, in that go to Swank, as far as having the strongest decrease. So some other wins, I think, with the once a week, where we did have a fuel savings of about nearly 10,000 gallons of diesel. Last year diesel was fairly reasonably priced. I think the average is for Skokie was like in the low threes. We're seeing that trending up. So that fuel savings can be as high as $4 or even $5 per gallon at some years. And then we were able to eliminate one refuse position, and that was just a position that was on hold that we knew we did not need anymore, and so there were some savings for that as well. On the compost side, I just have to admit that this was not a challenging program to launch, and it's been very heartening to see the community response to the free drop-off sites. So we opened 9 free drop-off sites last year. I was kind of over budget last year, so fortunately I had some extra money in that tonnage account because I had no idea what the participation was going to be, and it was just outstanding by our residents. And because of their energy for this program, I have to say we've been, contacted by all of these other municipalities to run similar programs. And I think that is the cool thing for Skokie, is that there's this synergy for compost now in the region because of what we've done. The city of Chicago being one has, we did several Zoom calls with the city of Chicago, and now they've launched a similar program. And a lot of the communities have just very basic questions on rats, on, where do you place them? How do you maintain them? How often do you check them? What should the signs be? And so Cook County has invited us and Evanston to kind of work with a cohort and, just do kind of a lessons learned, type thing for other communities. So that will be happening in June. And so Skokie's tonnage, which is impressive alone, just know that there's been a ripple effect in the region for what we're doing. We plan for next year to add 3 additional sites. One is currently at Timber Ridge. We've already had residents contact us asking us to keep that there. We do plan on that. It might move slightly within the park. We need to pour a concrete pad and find maybe a better spot for that there. I also have my eye on the Fairview district. There's nothing south of Toohey right now. And then the center of town on the east side has a geographical gap as well. So we're looking at getting one in there. Once we get those 3 in, I think we're pretty good on locations for a while, unless the tonnage is surprising us or we're getting a request for somewhere else. We'll always reevaluate if necessary. Our franchise agreement.
The tonnage that you're showing there, is that just what the village is collecting directly, or is that also for the Orange County program?
Yeah, that's both. We don't have a good way to separate that out. The tonnage is both. And just for perspective, right now we're collecting about 20 tons, per month. And so, we definitely expect the 2024 number to go up from here. As far as the next steps as well, I've been doing research on other compost programs from municipalities, and there's some toter programs out there. Just kind of looking at Oak Park, Highland Park, Deerfield, and so forth. The biggest opportunity I see for just getting some more tons of food scrap composted is commercial, and so we're going to be kind of evaluating that data further, and also considering that when we do need to go up for an RFP for future composting. That's all I have.
I did notice that all the sites, they might have started out with 3 composting, and now there's like 9 so we really, people love the fact that they can just walk over to their site and drop it off daily or whatever. So it's really worked well as far as like for equity in terms of you don't have to have money to be able to do this. You can go to one of these sites and drop it off for free. I think that's really a big plus.
Good observations and a good opportunity to remind everybody that the size of the toter is dictated by the vendor. And so that's the largest size toter that the vendor can handle. And so that's why we have deployed additional toters as opposed to changing the toter size. And the size is fixed.
Yeah, and that includes, we've also increased frequency of service per week too, so it's a very loved program at the restaurant.
When we first took away the second garbage pickup, there seemed to be, I'll use the term, a run on second toters. Has that died down?
Yeah, I pulled that data today actually, and so for the last year, you know, and if you recall, we had about 13% of town that we were worried about, that we weren't sure, you know, how they were gonna do the transition, and so we stocked a lot of toters to make sure that that wasn't an issue. So over the last year, we've had 527 requests for a second toter, which is way less than what I would have thought. I know at a board meeting, you mentioned you were concerned some people needed a second toter and probably weren't calling. I happened to have the intern on staff last year that was doing the cart tagging, and he was able to canvass town and also make a lot of requests to, you know, get those out to homes in need. So we're seeing in general that slow down significantly.
Well, since you brought it up, yeah, I remember making that
Mhm.
observation, and with the same people, I've noticed as we get farther into only one pickup, they have adjusted their habits, so it's like they made it so they don't need one, they've learned. So with, that's why I was wondering how the numbers have village-wide gone. So,
Do you have the total number deployed?
No, it's a little bit more work. Our system doesn't have an easy way to query that, but I can probably get that number.
Sense of like what percentage is Skokie, especially with 2 toters? What percentage of Skokie owns have 2?
I don't think we do.
We can review, let's
Yeah.
review the data and see if
Yeah.
we can get back to you.
Yeah. I mean, we do within the recent years, but I would assume there's even some households from, you know, before the data that we don't have all that.
All right, next, we'd like to visit about our EV transitions and updates on how we're doing on that. So I turn the floor over to Mr. Majak.
So, this budget will, allow for the purchase of 15 new EVs and 6 hybrids across all departments in the village. Most of those will qualify for up to $15,000 in rebates, both from the IRS and ComEd that we're taking advantage of. And they are estimated to save 9,200 gallons of fuel in the first year, just those 15 vehicles. In order to deploy those vehicles, we have to ramp up our facility charging. So we have several projects that we're gonna be putting in place, police station, fire stations, village hall, and public works. Again, we're taking advantage of some grant funding and ComEd programs, and just always exploring what programs are out there to help assist with the costs that can be pretty steep in some cases to upgrade the infrastructure. We are also looking to improve on our public EV charging. There are currently 910 EVs registered in the village of Skokie. That's up 61% from last year. And previous year was a 71% increase. So we're increasing pretty significantly. We have 8 public charging ports currently that get 350 to 400 charging sessions per month. And there's about 90 unique drivers that are visiting every month. So that shows that there's some people that don't have access to possibly a home charger that are revisiting these sites several times a month. So as we continue to explore the public charging sites, we're looking towards, focusing in the multifamily areas, low income business districts, as well as like transit parking lots to assist with Uber vehicles, cabs, just to make it easier for everybody to charge.
Now we're gonna give you a brief update on lead service line replacements. I know everybody's favorite subject. We have 30 years more to talk about it, so
34.
34, 33.
So, first thing we wanted to highlight is what I would consider a success story. With around this time last year, we presented, and you guys approved the cost share for the private side lead service replacement. And on our water main project last year, we impacted 118 lead services, and we successfully converted 109 of them to copper. So that's over 92%. We've had some communities reach out to us, see what we've done. They've heard murmurs about the program, so it's been very successful. If you'll recall, when we were talking about that cost share last year, that was all due to the state law change, and the requirements of that were no more impartial lead service replacements. We had to create a lead service inventory. We had to finalize our lead service inventory, and then we had to submit a lead service replacement plan. And so Samantha's been working on our lead service replacement plan, and I'll let her speak about that.
Thanks, Chris. So the IPA, the lead service line replacement plan was due beginning of this month. And so we have submitted that initial lead service line replacement plan. The final plan is due in April of 2027. We are allowed to revise the plan 2 more times before the final is due in 2027. And the plan ultimately will highlight the replacement strategy and the required number of services that we are required to have fully replaced through 2060. And we hope that we will be coming to the board and presenting the replacement plan, the initial replacement plan, so that that will be open for comments to the public, and the public can provide any feedback. Any feedback we receive will be able to be implemented in future updates to the plan. I have that one.
Okay, thank you. Russ, other public improvements?
So one specific project to speak to, and then wanted to touch on the ongoing bridge construction that's going on right now. So a project that's actually not in the CIP budget, but it's one that will definitely impact us and we're very interested in, is Cook County's working on the resurfacing of Oakton, what we're referring to as Oakton East. It's Oakton east of Skokie Boulevard. So Oakton east of Skokie Boulevard is under county jurisdiction. Oakton west of Skokie Boulevard is under village jurisdiction. There was another recent law change where the governing municipality, so in this case the county, it's their jurisdiction, it's their roadway. If it's in our municipality, we want some sort of pedestrian or bicycle improvement. Previously, we had to pay for that. But now, with it being their jurisdiction and their project, if we want it, then they include it, and it's not our expense. And so that's part of why it's not included in the budget, because hopefully there will be no expense to us. If there will be, we currently don't know how much that will be. They're still working on the design. But we wanted to highlight this because we know it's of great importance to many people with the pavement condition. And then in terms of what improvements we might see under the project, I'll again turn it over to Samantha.
Yeah, so the Oakton Street cross section that the county is proposing is to add on-street bike lanes, increase the number of parking spaces available, especially once you get a little further east, like along East Prairie School or McCracken, sorry. We'll add some additional on-street parking. There will be the pedestrian improvements that will include curb bump outs and striped crosswalks, and additional improvements to access to transit. So as we know, Oakton serves CTA and PACE, and so they will be making a lot of improvements as a part of their resurfacing and the restriping plan to kind of have better access to transit along that corridor.
And so again, that's a Cook County project, and if we didn't already say it, we anticipate the county holding a public meeting for that improvement for public comment in the coming months. And then finally, in terms of the CIP, a much discussed topic, the Old Orchard roadway reconstruction and bridge replacement, the Dempster Bridge asphalt replacement, and then the Oakton Bridge replacement. And so obviously not ideal to have all those under construction at the same time. These projects go from cradle to grave over a matter of years. I mean, we're working on the Grosse Point Road construction up north. That project was started by my predecessor's predecessor. So these things take some time. So when those three projects were conceived, they were not contemplated to be constructed at the same time. You fold in the coordination of the various funding sources, all the required design approvals. The Old Orchard project, I know, required some substantial land acquisition. And so then unfortunately, we get to where we are now, where the timelines converged. Like I said, it's not ideal, but at the same time, those are not our bridges. We are not the bridge jurisdiction. It's not our ownership. We did not say the bridges needed to be replaced. They decided those bridges needed to be replaced. And so hopefully we can get through it. I'm confident. I know that the improvements that are included in the projects are going to be worth it. The Oakton Bridge replacement includes a multi-use path on the south side. The Old Orchard Bridge replacement includes a multi-use path on the south side, which will complete the network that we already started up there. We have bike path west of Woods and we have bike path east of Skokie Boulevard. And so through that Old Orchard project, we'll get connectivity of that bike path. That will fold in nicely with the bike lanes that are included in the Grosse Point Road project that's going on right now. And so, like I said, I know it's not ideal, I know it's unfortunate, but I promise you it's worth it.
My number one question is the Crawford.
So we're still working with the county on that. We had our public meeting last year. We're getting ready to start phase 2 design engineering, and the current construction timeline for Crawford is 2026.
I know this is a sore subject, but is there any chance at all that we could do a jurisdictional transfer on East Oakton?
On where?
East Oakton.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at the two, I don't. But you look at our side and you look at the other side. One's a danger, the other one is in good condition, and there's a reason for that.
So I guess my initial comment to that would be, since we finally have their attention and we finally have their commitment to an improvement and to a project, I don't know if it would still make sense for us to do that. Because right now, the project is scheduled for 2025 construction. And so then that being said, once it's nice, I mean, it would be less maintenance for us once it's nice, but it would be more maintenance than we have right now because we don't have any, right?
If the county maintains it.
Yes.
That's my question. Not trying to give you a heart attack.
I recovered already.
Or theoretically, Oakton east of Skokie Boulevard, that on-street bike lane would be the full Skokie Boulevard to McCormick.
Yes, the extent of the bike lanes would be starting at Skokie Boulevard and end at McCormick.
That's all we have.
Okay. Thank you. Great job. Great job. Next item is community development.
Young person who can do it.
Yes.
I just want to align. Part of it, I didn't was wrong. I wanted to make sure. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had started. Sorry.
Everybody kind of took a break, so it worked out perfect.
Please.
All right, nope. Good evening, happy to be here and a little ahead of schedule for this evening. So before I launch into what we've been working on in community development, I want to introduce the newest member of our team, 4 days old in the village of Skokie, Rodney Tonelli. You've probably seen the press releases and the other news, but we're really excited. He's hit the ground running and getting up to speed on everything economic vitality in village of Skokie. So I'm happy that he could be here tonight with us.
Welcome. Thank you. Great to have you. Thank you.
Always good to serve at a budget.
So I'll start with our planning services division. In FY24, we approved 313 residential units in the village. This was in 2 separate developments. The first was in 4600 Main, which was, as you recall, 68 townhomes. This included a contribution to affordable housing efforts in the amount of $450,000. And then more recently, 5202 Old Orchard Road, which is 245 units, with 6 units available at 120% of AMI, which is a below market rent for that development. So continue to be strong in the market. We're wrapping up our work for the subcommittee of the Plan Commission, working on the housing chapter of the village's comprehensive plan. This work has included 6 meetings and is scheduled next month to provide a recommendation to the Plan Commission to keep this moving forward to be back before the village board later this spring, summer. As you know, the village's comprehensive plan articulates the village's vision for the future and serves as an important document for future development and guidance of growth. And we also engaged a consultant to help develop a plan for the Main Street corridor. This effort extends from Crawford to about Tripp, looking at the vision and the possibility of the work that could happen in the village of Skokie along the Main Street corridor. The consultants have worked to look at the development potential of the various sites and then look at additional opportunities for parking and bicycle and pedestrian improvements. Our consultants are in the process of finalizing a draft of this document, and we anticipate that the plan will be publicly shared later this spring. 2 key updates on our zoning code to support both sustainability and vibrancy in our downtown. The first was a text amendment to allow, and our colleagues in Public Works may have already shared this one, allow the charging stations, electric vehicle charging stations in all zoning districts. This is a little nuanced and public zoning planner and nerdy land, but this allows for off-street parking and electric vehicle charging station spots to be counted as the same. So you don't have extra parking, so that it counts towards that off-street parking, which is a very important nuance and has earned the village a bronze status with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus for EV readiness. Finally, the most recent one, the zoning text amendment to allow co-working spaces and retail streets around downtown. Some people may have considered office a service, but this particular office use really supports the vibrancy and bringing new people to our downtown and creating that foot traffic in our downtown. So we anticipate a user, I'll talk about it a little bit later, but we anticipate a user coming forth very soon for this work. So briefly, federal grants. We continue to wait for the Department of Housing and Urban Development's announcement of our upcoming entitlement grant amount. But while we do that, we have stayed quite busy. We have 2 key programs to help our low and moderate households through home repairs, the home improvement program, and our neighborhood enhancement program. And both the former supports individual owners looking to make rehab to their house, whether small or a little bit bigger. And then the latter is for homes that are in multifamily developments, 2 flats or 4-plex, to help make those bigger, larger projects, a new roof, new doors, new windows. So we're working with groups in both of those to move those projects forward. And finally, we've supported small businesses, minority-owned, women-owned, or low-income businesses that were impacted by COVID that were in existence prior to COVID through our Skokie existing small business assistance program. We've assisted over 17 businesses with small dollar amounts to help them continue to move and rebuild through COVID. Our Building and Inspection Services division continues to be quite busy. We had a strong year. We had about $191 million of permitted work in the village. This was quite strong, but also a result of the Henry, the Tucker Development Building on Old Orchard Road, which had a work value of $65 million. So continue to see interest in the private market and investment in new and existing buildings in Skokie. We've also continued to improve our permitting operations and the customer service experience in the village. Notably, we achieved Gold Soul Smart status, which recognizes the village's efforts to make adding solar panels to your home or office easier. And we've demonstrated we have a streamlined permitting and inspection process, and there are limited barriers to installing that equipment on your home. We also only accept electronic plans to reduce paper waste and to also expedite review. So if people may not be familiar with this process, or maybe still want to do a paper, they can still come to the village. We'll work with them to get them through an electronic process. Last year I was here and I reported that we had 75% of our online applications, 75% of our permits were online or remote. That number has continued to grow. We're now at 81% of those permits are online or remote. So with that, we've freed up some of our staff time to do some light permit review that were previously processing papers and moving them around. So again, we've been able to expedite some of our permit review and permit application work through that. The state of Illinois now requires municipalities to enforce the 2021 Illinois Energy Code. Illinois is slated to offer for adoption the stretch code this summer. Should the village decide to adopt and enforce the stretch code, it would bridge the gap for sustainability between the 2021 energy codes and the 2024 energy codes, providing greater sustainability and energy efficiency in construction. And finally, our property maintenance staff continues to work to make sure Skokie is safe and a beautiful place. This is the team that's also responsible for the enforcement of our neighborhood integrity ordinance. So this past year, we did many pre-sale inspections, close to 60. We're getting back to our pre-COVID numbers. Pre-sale inspections are the inspection of properties that are sold. We rental multifamily buildings. This preserves our rental housing stock. So we go into the buildings, we check to make sure the buildings are safe, the units are safe before they're sold and transferred to a new owner. Additionally, we've continued our round inspections, which we inspect the exterior maintenance, the exterior conditions of buildings and some of the common elements to again make sure that these buildings are safe. We have routed all of our concerns or complaints through the village's Access Skokie app, City Source, to make sure that we're best capturing and providing good responses to everybody who might have inquiries to our department. Last year, we responded to over 10,000 inquiries through this source. So it's been a really good way to make sure that we're delivering service quick and fast. I will pause before I go into 2024, 2025 activities. Is there any questions? Okay. Right. So this year, I mentioned the Main Street project. We're winding down that consulting report. Looking forward to the ideas and moving forward some of the streetscape ideas, as well as the investment in that corridor, and looking at how we can transform some of those properties into exciting new ventures. One of which I'll talk about when we talk about economic vitality. Mentioned finalizing the chapter 6 of the comprehensive plan. That'll be before you later this summer. And then we'll move forward and look to see what other areas of the comprehensive plan we need to update and work with, particularly engineering and public works, to look at how we can maybe update our transportation portions of the plan. Mentioned continuing to update our code, particularly as it relates to our energy code, but also keep the customer experience centered in our work and make sure that they're getting, they can get their permits expeditiously, they're getting the best customer service. We are converting the administrative staff that had previously just collected paper and moved around and answered many phone calls. We've given them additional training opportunities, and we will be converting those positions to permit technicians to further elevate the work and professionalize the work that staff does, and add that some light permit review so we can do more day. We often call them over the counter or day of permits. So trying to move something that might wait a few days to be reviewed by an inspector, we can move that forward a little faster. And finally, we are deploying devices that will support the field staff to complete inspections in the field. So right now, the inspector would go do the inspection, they take some notes, and then they return to the office and result their inspections in the office and type up all their notes or do whatever they have to do from those inspections in the office. So now we can do that in the field, and that way we can spend that office time returning phone calls, doing plan review, and doing other things to more efficiently use the time when staff is in the office.
Comments or questions?
What change we made? Sounds like it's better customer service and people won't be as frustrated, because obviously that's always been a problem when you don't have as much staff as you have requests. And I think with the technology that we have in this world today, we're utilizing and finding ways to be like better customer service is important.
And the world has come to expect, because of the way our phones and apps work, that we'll pick it up. And that's when I talk to my colleagues in other communities, it's the same thing. We can purchase things in minutes, and it doesn't, municipal permitting and inspection work doesn't quite work as well as your Amazon app. So
You got spoiled.
so it's, but the online, if you've ever applied for it, it is not, you can see where your permit is, you can see how it's been tracked. So that's continue to look at how that software can deliver.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Economic vitality.
Okay, well, still here for that. All right, so continue, have a great year. We just this week finished rounding out the team in time for the end of the fiscal year. So over 100 certificates of occupancy were issued last year, which stays on par with the number of new businesses, new commercial entities that have opened in town. Noteworthy businesses, Kawa House, Will's Place, G Fashion Alteration, the Pilates Experience, Skokie International Market, Two Flower Girls. Really unique mix of businesses that definitely reflects the Skokie mix of businesses, the Skokie diversity. Most of the businesses have been doing really great. They've been really happy and pleased with their launch into Skokie. I think Pilates Experience said that they were sold out of some of their classes in the first week or two. But so that if you build it, they will come. The downtown market is very strong and exciting. Kawa House, you go in the evening, it's pretty busy and active. So continue to build the Skokie economic vitality brand. We focused a lot on events and getting out to businesses this year, building a different presence that we hadn't had before, and some activities. So continue to support the holiday Halloween celebration with the chamber. We tried a new event this year called the Holiday Cookie Walk. It sold out very quickly. We had to open even more opportunities. It was an event where you walked around downtown, you got a cookie and you shopped, and we were able to see that businesses all reported being very pleased with the activity. We saw an influx of people who would, maybe they walked around with a couple people and then they went to dinner afterwards, Village Inn, Libertad, everybody reported seeing a little bit of extra activity that weekend. So that was really exciting. About half of the tickets were sold to people who lived outside Skokie zip codes. Most of them are right around communities of touch, but there was one from Wisconsin. So that was fun and exciting. If you didn't make it to the Giftorium, which was a collection of small vendors that sold holiday gifts, we're going to try to do it again, but it did really well. It did approximately $8,000 in sales. It's a little bit of a pop-up store to bring some new retail vibrancy, and also give some vendors a chance to check out the Skokie market and see how their sales would do. Generally, people reported a good and positive experience. We also did a program called the Small Business Saturday Coffee Mug Promotion, where you could go buy a coffee mug, a reusable coffee mug. And then in January, when many of the businesses might not see as much activity, you could go get a cup of coffee using this mug. And there were several businesses that you could fill that up at. The idea being, if you had the mug, it takes 30 days to build a new habit. And so 30 days of going to a new coffee shop might encourage you to go to a new coffee shop instead of maybe going to a larger chain that is in town. We certainly love our larger chains, but this is a chance to give the smaller businesses a chance too. And then with a portion of the proceeds from the mugs went to local charities to support efforts there. We celebrated Manufacturing Day for the first time, which is October 6th. And it's a day across the country that recognizes the contributions of manufacturers to our economy. We held several manufacturing breakfast summits where we invited manufacturers into Village Hall. They met with staff. We visited with them, learned about what they did. Fascinating businesses and things are made here in Skokie. Super exciting to highlight. But notably, this was the Illinois Manufacturing Excellence Center, IMEC, had a chunk of ARPA dollars that they had to spend on supporting businesses to update their websites to optimize sales. So we were able to tap into those ARPA dollars, and 10 businesses took advantage of that opportunity and updated their websites. And the projections are that each of those are supposed to drive additional sales 10% by 10% in this next year. So that was a pretty exciting, at no cost to the village, opportunity to access dollars. Finally, new staff has had monthly meetings with our downtown businesses. We brought those businesses back together. I know they previously met, but working on cross communication and new events, new ideas and new ways of getting to know each other throughout the district, particularly because we've had new businesses or new business owners that have come into the mix.
So at the Consumer Affairs Commission, Carol presented some of the that are currently in development right now in the downtown area, businesses that sort of see there's a lot of activity that's happening. And I wonder if there's an opportunity to maybe collaborate with the Chamber of Commerce to think about ways that we can highlight and message on what's coming in that area to kind of create some energy and awareness of the activity that's happening in the downtown area.
Yeah, we're working on a window. I don't know if she's talking about the window program. This idea of we put windows that say like coming soon, we would our code requires you to cover the windows, so we would cover them with a nicely designed screen that would show coming soon or this space available, but would also promote things that are happening in our downtown on those, so the vacant spaces got dressed up a bit. Yeah.
And just to further understand your comment, are you thinking that the information that was shared with the Consumer Affairs Commission needs to be shared more widely?
I would
Okay.
have it be more and even like a way to visualize that as well. And I don't know how technical you can get as far as like showing the demonstration walkthrough, like what we can expect in those areas. I think I saw something similar when we have developers come and present to us, like here's a visualization of what this new development's gonna look like. It'd be nice to have a visual along the street, the corridors, like where these new businesses are starting to be popping up and some idea of the timeline. If there's a timeline, 'cause I know sometimes it's unpredictable. But it would be nice to see the amount of activity that's happening there. That's it.
Thanks for the input.
Rod's taking furious notes over here. He's on it. His schedule is relatively flexible right now.
Okay, it'd be a great project to work on.
Well, that's a nice lead into all the things that we have coming for 2024-25. So the 8,000 building will have 2 new tenants, Enclave, the co-working space that will come to the Lincoln side of the building. And we'll have new tenants that will spend money in downtown businesses. Shione continues its build out, and we look forward to them opening later this year. The Spot, I don't know if you all are familiar with that, it's the former Roberts Office Supply space. It's an Asian hot pot restaurant that is gonna start construction very soon. They'll be offering lunch and dinner, and we'll be looking at revamping and adding windows to the side. Massive reconstruction of parts of the building to really open up that space and be a great opening to downtown Skokie. And we look forward to them joining our nightlife in downtown. And then 2 new boutiques, the Hijab Vaults and CJ and Sparkle, will be opening in downtown and have fast fashion and accessory assortments for shopping. And then 2 new halal restaurants will be opening, Slice and Sweet Reserve Cafe, Bakery, both offering full restaurant service and dining, filling that gap of dining service from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. If you recall, Sweet Reserve Cafe was a recipient of a village storefront enhancement program. They brought a bunch of baked goods that were in the lobby the night of their board meeting. And we anticipate Slice coming forward with storefront enhancement request as well, shortly. And then in terms of events, continue same events as last year's that were successful. We're going to do some Olympic theme at Tour de France / Tour de Skokie themed ones to recognize Al's Bike Shop anniversary. And then we'll continue with a holiday cookie walk, giftorium, and small business Saturday coffee mug. It'll be a different looking coffee mug so you can collect the 2024-25 version. And then manufacturing day will continue with that. I didn't mention earlier, we had great partners with the Skokie Public Library, Niles Township, Niles West and Niles North, Oakton College, as well as ETHS, promoting field trips for high school students to area businesses to understand the other career opportunities than just the college track. So great partnerships there to support that. And we made it something of a month-long activity this year. And then the monthly businesses will continue with downtown, and then we'll look to see what other business districts or business communities might need to have that kind of staff support to build their affinity groups or geographic groups. Main Street, I mentioned the consulting work. We're going to continue to implement that. And then the owner of Zelda's Catering purchased the property at Keystone and Main, the empty dance / dry cleaner / kitchen that's there. It's in need of very significant work, and they will be coming shortly before us for a storefront enhancement in the Cook County assessment resolution.
They bought the whole building?
They bought the whole building.
Not all the way to Crawford.
No, but the one building with about 4 or 5 stores.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's technically 3 buildings on that block. There's that building, there's the one that Costa Arena, the Mexican restaurant, was in for a little bit, and then there's the one
With the flower
with the
shop.
flower shop, yeah. So they have possession of 2 of the 3 of those. So it's
Good.
Yeah, good private partner on Main Street. And so they'll be cleaning up those, rehabbing, white boxing, basically bringing new electric and plumbing and other significant investment to the space. And then they'll be turning that one building into 3 commercial spaces. One will hold Soul Good, our business of the year, on the corner at Keystone and Main. And the middle space will be Zelda's Table, which will be a takeout restaurant of their catering operation. And then third tenant TBD. So very exciting anchor, way to launch Main Street, and looking forward to that activation significantly. Christina will still operate the coffee truck though, even though she will have a bricks and mortar location. And then looking forward to a couple other things. Green business, we have a green business program. Our sustainability work with businesses will include the assistance of the Smart Assistant Design Energy Center out of UIUC to develop a Skokie specific green business baseline program, which will reduce the participating business operational costs, support economic development in Skokie, and also support the village's sustainability plan. So help it find ways for the businesses to operate more sustainably, and then measure that sustainability. So I know that was another piece of something that the Consumer Affairs Commission was gonna work on in terms of how to roll that out and reach businesses around Skokie. And then last but not least, we are going to update our economic development strategy. It will be renamed Economic Vitality Strategy to reflect our Office of Economic Vitality. Rod's already off to the races and working on that and mapping out our local Skokie ecosystem. But this will really be a chance to incorporate post-pandemic experience and growth, and capture where we are in the market cycle, but also figure out where we're going and what kind of things do we need to do to do that. So really exciting to be able to move that project forward.
Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's made my day. I think the best news we had today.
She mentioned that they sold good coffee, will be using food from Zones to satisfy their requirement to have a food service and add liquor. Right?
Yep, half that is accurate.
Make sure nothing changed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Public comment before we adjourn.
okay.
Do we have another section?
No,
Oh, we're not doing, oh.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Good evening, everyone. So for the 9th meeting in a row, I'm going to speak about the need to reform our legal department.
Isn't this a budget hearing? Am I in the wrong place? This is a budget hearing. Not your forum, we're talking about budgets today.
It's an open meeting. Tonight, I want to talk about something really, really specific. I want to talk about the village's ongoing disputes with the Illinois Attorney General's office. Village attorneys are still being used to dispute OMA and FOIA violations. And I'm bringing this up because to me, this is a real clear example of how we're not getting the legal services that we need for the legal department. As you're all aware, since early 2023, the AG's office has issued at least 3 determinations against the board because of our open meetings violations. We've been responding by denying these violations and disputing the AG. Tonight, when we're passing things out, I just wanted to make sure that all the trustees are aware that there are at least 2 more active investigations underway from the AG's office. And in both cases, the village is still denying violations and disputing the AG. In the months to come, we will likely be receiving 1 or 2 more determinations. The first active investigation concerns our December 18th village board meeting, when we made a really simple, really honest mistake. We accidentally adjourned our meeting before the open public comments section of our agenda, which was a really clear open meetings violation. A few days later, a resident filed a request for review. The AG's office opened an investigation, and American responded on behalf of the village. Instead of simply kind of acknowledging our mistake, we claimed that we did allow open public comments when we did not, which means the investigation has continued. So I'm going to pass around copies just so everyone is aware this is ongoing. The second active investigation concerns the work of the mayor and village attorneys to amend the OMA and dispute one of the AG's determinations concerning our past approval of closed session minutes and closed session. In March, a resident FOIA email correspondences between the mayor and Senator Bill Hall, a number of municipal attorneys. But the response from the village was heavily overly redacted. The resident filed a report for review. The AG's office found there was enough cause to proceed with investigation. And the village has responded by, again, denying any violation, disputing the AG's office. That's sort of copies of this one as well. I wanted to bring this up. These are the two recent investigations that I've been made aware of. I'm not sure if there are others. I received all of these correspondences from the residents who filed these requests for reviews, not from anyone at the village. Bringing this up because our exchanges with the AG's office have become a bit ridiculous. It's pretty clear that the village is not acting in good faith in our exchanges with the Attorney General's office. And I'm really pleading with the trustees tonight to step up and do something about this before there are any more investigations.
What do you want? What do you want done? Should we go out, we'll take Michael out and shoot him? What do you want done now? Tell me. What's your bottom line here? You're repetitious, the same thing over and over, and that's all I hear. Now, what do you want done? You want us trustees do something. What do you want done, sir? I ask you straight, what do you want done?
I would love staff changes. I would love an update to our appointment process. I would love an update to our ethical standards. And I would love for us to stop disputing the Attorney General's office over our open meetings violations.
I would love you to
We
do
have
your job.
every right to reply. Yeah, that is a right that we have. And if we dispute it, that is within our jurisdiction.
We shouldn't be disputing mistakes that we've clearly made.
Well, they're not clear, that's the point. They're not clear. If they were clear, they would be reviewed and understood. They're not clear. Anything else?
That's all from me.